and we are recording. Jeremy, it has been a long time. In fact, so long you've perfected this.
Oh, you're very kind.
It looks good. How are you?
Man, look, on a general level, we're very blessed to be where we are, but obviously no end of things to be concerned about on the macro level. So that weighs on me a lot, probably more than it should. So I'd say overall blessed, but definitely feeling a lot of that societal stress that many people are feeling right now.
Well, then let's see if we can alleviate that for the next 30 to 40 minutes, because we're gonna talk about an area that you are very knowledgeable in, both wide and deep, and that's an inside joke for the viewers based on our preliminary chat.
There you go. Right.
So I want to thank you for doing this, and welcome to Did You Know That? ? A channel where I get to talk to interesting people about topics and subjects that I do find intriguing, interesting, or annoying. And for those of you who may be just joining us, my name is Sean O'Rourke. I'm a cyber liability consultant, which means I basically prepare companies to be hacked. And this channel was just my passion project because I wanted to talk to folks and figured this was a good way to do it. So if you're new to the channel and you make it through this video and enjoy it, make sure you hit subscribe along with the bell so that you'll get notifications. And if you're a returning member, welcome. I hope this one is as interesting to you as it will be to me, and all the previous videos have been. So now I want to introduce my guest. Actually, I'm going to let him introduce himself. So Jeremy, take it away.
Well, thank you for having me, Sean. I definitely want to talk about what it means to help a company prepare to be hacked, because I feel like there's really no preparation necessary, but we can save that for when I interview you another time. But yes, my name is Jeremy Epstein. I tell people that I live at ground zero for the Twilight Zone because I live 4 miles from the White House, but these days everywhere is the Twilight Zone, so maybe that's not so accurate. I wear many hats, but one of them is I am the co-chief investment officer of the Crypto Futura Fund, and we help people get access to the emerging world of crypto assets, which are the mechanisms through which people can participate in these emerging decentralized markets that exist on public blockchain technology. The most famous one, of course, being Bitcoin. And I've been in this space for just about 5 years, and I've been in the technology industry, give or take, for over 20 years before this, most immediately at a company called Sprinkler, where I would not have joined were it not for Sean O'Rourke. So there you go.
Well, I think that's a good thing, because I think
it worked out well for me, and of course for society. Yeah, I had a good run, and I was very blessed. And without you, you get a small footnote of my personal history, but my family are grateful to you for that.
Well, when your Wikipedia page is written, just put the asterisk there.
Don't hold your breath, but yes. Okay.
So actually, Jeremy and I met when I was running my technology consulting company, and you were doing work for you weren't an employee of Microsoft, but you were a consultant to Microsoft.
Right.
And that's where we met. And then I can't believe you've only been in the crypto blockchain space for 5 years, because it does seem like you were born into it.
Well, I started dabbling in it in about 2013. I bought my first Bitcoin then, sort of as a side thing, just because I was curious. It was about $80. Didn't buy enough, sold too many, and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't really pay attention to it for too long until my run at Sprinkler was sort of coming to its end. And that's when I said, I have these Bitcoin, like, what the hell are these things? And that's where the process began. But yeah, it's been a long time.
So one of the central tenets that I wanted to talk about today was something that you already mentioned, which was a blockchain. And look, I'm not gonna lie to people. Blockchain is not something that's very easy to get your mind around conceptually. We could spend a couple of hours just sort of detailing the whole thing. But in layman's speak, and you can take as long as you want, let's hear your take on what blockchain is.
Yeah, it's true. Even though I've been in this space for a while, I feel like there's some days I can't even explain it very well. So I will do my best. At a high level, blockchain is just a database. But what differentiates a blockchain as a database from the databases that most of us are familiar with is that it is decentralized as opposed to centralized. So as a cyber liability consultant, you're very familiar with the dangers of centralized technology and centralized data systems, which means that they are more likely to be hacked because all the information resides in one place, and they're also risky from the fact that internal bad actors can play around and change them. Plus, there are all types of costs associated with maintaining that and having a centralized administrator. But blockchain, the innovation that blockchain represents is it takes the same ability to store information and reliably, but it decentralizes it, which means it essentially spreads the risks out over multiple computers. And that provides the benefit to people to know that the likelihood that the information can be trusted is significantly higher, give or take. There are some nuances I should emphasize, but significantly higher. And so in a world where trust is sadly plummeting at an exponential rate,
especially in the cyber world.
Well, and beyond, but certainly in the cyber world, the ability to be able to look at a database and have near 100% confidence that the data represented is accurate, that the transactions are accurate, and to be able to trust in the integrity of the data there, and to know that the data is secure in terms of hackers as well as other people seeking to modify it, provides a great deal of comfort and security, and at scale has the ability to potentially do it at significantly lower cost than our current systems, with again some nuanced exceptions.
So that is
Was that close enough?
Actually one of the better explanations that I've heard. Yeah, you can.
We'll take
do
it.
a victory lap after this.
Yes.
After this,
it's Friday afternoon, man. I'm just happy I can
that.
even get it out. Yeah.
It's a Friday in August when we're recording this, so
that's right.
I'm actually kind of happy that our brains are working so far. So one word that you did not use in the description that is most often used to describe the blockchain is a ledger. And for a lot of people watching this, they've never seen what a ledger book really is, right. Or a lot of people equate it immediately to accounting. Right. And it does take some of that notion of accounting, but just so that people understand, can you explain why the term ledger is used when describing the blockchain? And I know I didn't prep you on that question.
No, it's fine. I mean, honestly, I probably should have used the term ledger. It's probably better. So I took a premature.
No. I liked your description better, believe it or not, because I think the word ledger is confusing to people. But I want you to explain why it is used in the blockchain context.
Yeah, I mean, it's, just think of a simple spreadsheet where you keep track of entries. It's like bookkeeping. I mean, goes back to its double entry bookkeeping. I think that the Venetians invented back in the 1400s, if I'm not mistaken. But essentially, it's just a record of all the transactions that occur in a given market or a given industry. And so, if Jeremy sends $10 to Sean, Bank of America or Chase or whoever keeps track of the fact that account A was debited $10 and account B was credited $10. That is the ledger that shows the money's there, so that the next transaction where you want to spend that $10, Chase or Bank of America can say, yes, he actually has $10. How do we know that? Because Jeremy sent it to him. But Chase or the bank has to do that in the current model. In a blockchain, we don't rely on those people. We just rely on the technology, the software to verify that. But essentially, it's a history of transactions that occur within a given market as assets or value move from one entity to another. And that way you can verify the integrity of the ownership of the money or whatever it is that you're keeping track of in the ledger.
So that's a perfect explanation of why the word ledger is used. So now I want to go on to another question.
Sure.
That believe it or not, I got asked earlier this week, and I only had like 30 seconds to explain it, so I didn't even make a real effort. But who owns the distributed machines in a blockchain, and aren't they a risk, or why aren't they a risk when it comes to the way that the distribution of this data works?
So I think I can understand why in 30 seconds it was challenging, because if you say who owns the distributed machines, the answer, at least in some networks, is whoever actually owns the physical computers. But the real question is who owns the network? Because that's really what it is. And the answer to who owns the network is everybody who has membership, who's purchased membership in that network. Those memberships are basically membership tokens, more commonly referred to as coins or crypto assets. So just like who owns a company, the shareholders do. Who owns a distributed ledger? The token holders do. So if you are a Bitcoin token holder, you own 1/21 millionth of the network, of the total value. So the machines are the people, that's a different, they provide a service of security and verification services. But in terms of ownership, that's by basically buying shares of the network, for lack of a better term. And that's what these crypto coins or tokens are.
So you have to be an owner of at least one Bitcoin to be part of the Bitcoin network. You have to,
you have to own 0.000000001.
Right.
You don't have to own one because it's digital. So as long as you have any decimal fraction, you are that representative share ownership of the network.
See, that's why I brought him in, to make sure that we were clear for how this all works. Because,
well, it's a common misconception that you can only own one Bitcoin, and the answer is that's not accurate.
That's correct. And that's actually a good, we're going to veer off a little bit, and I'll come back to the other questions.
It's your show, man.
Well, I think let's see how it goes, first of all, and then we'll figure it out.
It's already going.
Yeah. So, unlike regular currency, you can't sort of share a dollar.
Right.
You can't share a penny.
Right.
One person has the penny and another person doesn't. However, with a digital asset like Bitcoin, like all the others that are out there, whether you find them legitimate or not, you can own fractions of them.
Correct.
And so when you go to market, if a Bitcoin is 20 grand, but you only have 10, somebody could be willing to sell you half a Bitcoin.
For sure.
If they wanted you to.
Happens all the time.
Okay.
And that's literally the beautiful thing is when you have digital assets, they're divisible basically infinitely.
Right.
Whereas to your point, the penny, you can only go so far with the penny. So that gives you tremendous flexibility. So the exchange rate of one Bitcoin, which 11 years ago, one Bitcoin was worth like 1 cent, and today one Bitcoin is worth $11,600 or whatever it is today. You can slice off 0.1, 0.01, 0.01, so on and so forth. And so that gives you a tremendous amount of flexibility to make payments, micro payments and any type of amount that you want without being constrained by the physical dollar or coins that you might have, or the fact that the currency, whoever issues the currency in the traditional world says, no, there are 100, cents in a euro and a dollar or whatever, pence in a pound or whatever it is.
Okay. So to that end, when looking at the blockchain, and we're going to go back on topic a bit, because if I get too distracted, we'll wind up in the nether reaches of crypto and whatnot.
Yeah, it's deep.
So going back to the blockchain, crypto assets aren't the only thing being used on this technology. Am I correct?
So a slight twist. So the blockchain as a database is the technology. Now, it's also important for people to understand there's sort of the term blockchain has been applied to two sides. There's what people call private blockchains and what people call public blockchains. Now, private blockchains to me are particularly not sexy. They're just another way for people to control information. The reason why they're private is because everybody who provides the security of the network is known. That's great, but it also limits who can participate and also increases risk, because if any one of those actors is compromised, you start to introduce security threats, and cyber liability consultants then have more work, which is great for you, but not great for everybody else. Sure. Public blockchains are like the public internet. Anyone can participate. So public blockchains are the innovation, the technological innovation. Now, just like the internet is the technology that enables applications like email and the browsers and what have you, public blockchains also enable applications that leverage them. The most famous one is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one type of crypto asset that I would put in the digital gold store of value.
Right.
There are other digital crypto assets that are applications that use public blockchain, and I realize this is a lot, that will allow you to participate in other networks. So for example, you can participate in a digital collectibles network. You can participate in an art network. You can participate in a virtual private network, crypto network. You can participate in a gaming network. There are all types of networks that are applications that rely on the public blockchain technology to allow people to exchange value in what they say is a trustless way, meaning I don't need to trust a centralized actor to ensure that the ledger that we talked about before has been maintained its integrity. I just need to rely that the software code is working the way it's supposed to do it.
Right.
And then basically I have that confidence.
Right, and so it doesn't matter, I mean, look, let's be honest, Bitcoin has gotten a bit of a black eye because it is most often in the general public associated with ransomware. And so a lot of people look at it and think it is only the vehicle of cyber criminals, which it's not. It's just been co-opted to be used by them because it is, to an extent, invisible. Not wholly invisible, but it is invisible. Once it hits an account, it's very hard to track because it is a digital asset that in reality doesn't leave much of a footprint if you know how to do it right.
Right. I think the term that people throw around is like pseudonymous. It's not quite anonymous, but it is not quite like I know exactly it's Sean who has this money and what have you. So there is, you're right. It has gotten a black eye, which is unfortunate because, first of all, I mean, I always like to talk about the $230 billion that Danske Bank managed to launder out of Russia through Estonia, which is basically like the total value of Bitcoin all up. But we'll leave that aside. So look, criminals will always find a way to do bad things with technology, regardless of currency, what have you. Fine, you're right. That is a good storyline right now. It also represents an opportunity because the truth is, there was an MIT study, which I'd have to go find back, and so don't hold me that, but like less than 5% or so of the Bitcoin traffic is really cyber criminals doing their stuff. Yeah. So the people who, I'm more concerned about the 2 billion people on the planet who don't have a bank account. I'm more concerned about the middle class people in Turkey, Zimbabwe, Argentina, Venezuela, Sudan, who are just trying to preserve the wealth that they've worked really hard for their families, as opposed to having it inflated away by irresponsible central bank policies in all of these countries. That's the real injustice that Bitcoin was designed to address back in 2009 when it was invented. It was on the heels of the 2008 Great Recession where all the money printing happened, and Satoshi Nakamoto, he, they, it, whatever, when it was released was like, no, it is not okay for people to be, at the mercy of central bankers who essentially pump money into the economy and make the rich even richer, which we're now seeing at a whole new order of magnitude. You want to get me riled up? We'll start talking about that because that's just, I'm ticked. I'm like pissed off.
You are the guest. Give you free reign.
I'm angry. I'm just so angry right now. It's just so unfair what's happening. But whatever. That's
well, and so to a lot of people watching this, maybe you've referred to it as a crypto asset as opposed to a cryptocurrency. And I've said anybody who's ever seen me post say that any digital coin is not a currency because there's no way a government is going to give up the power of the printing press in that regard. So it is an asset, and that's the way the IRS treats it. However, to your point on that, the reason it's become such a hot commodity and a hot technology is for the very reason that you said, is that it no longer makes the value of your personal holdings dependent on any one particular currency, whether it be your home currency or foreign currency or otherwise.
Right. So I would make a slight change. I would say like a currency is basically what people say is a currency, right? If you are saying, you provide your cyber liability consulting services or whatever to me, and you're saying I'm willing to accept Bitcoin or something else in return for payment or services, that makes it a currency automatically. But your larger point is spot on, which is for the first time in human history, we're able to have a provable mechanism for transferring value that can be trusted by anybody without the need for a third party to provide the guarantees as to the authenticity of the actual coin or the value of the coin. Like that's independent. We've separated money from state for the first time, pretty much going all the way back to like wampum beads and that kind of stuff, which is the huge value.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to Sumer, the first civilization. I mean, they were bartering back then, but they were still taking something that's currency. And the reason why I want to delineate that is because to me, currency is a fixed value, where an asset is not. An asset is a value based on the deterministic agreement between you and I.
But by that definition, the dollar is not a currency.
Technically, yes. I'll give you
What's the fixed value? There's no fixed value. In 1971, it cost $34 to buy an ounce of gold. Now it costs $2,000.
Well, now we're getting into inflationary discussions and what have you. Okay, let's backtrack.
Yeah, sorry.
That's quite okay.
You invited me on the show,
I know, and everybody is seeing why. Everybody is seeing why.
You can't invite me and then not let me just like spout my evangelical zeal.
No, you may go zealous as you
want. You asked
for
this, man.
Go zealous as you want. And just understand, as this is already one of the better conversations, there's going to be a part 2. So everybody just stay tuned.
Is that how this works?
If I like you and it's a good conversation, there'll be a part 2.
You're a legend in my house, so you get part 2.
Oh, thanks.
You get that anytime you want.
Infamous, I believe, is the word you're looking for. Hey, I got another quick aside. Satoshi, you referred to him, her, it, they.
Right.
Why?
So,
because you referred to that name as the creator of Bitcoin.
So Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, when it was introduced, there's a whole process of writing the document and releasing code. And the person the entity that signed it signed the name as Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, the challenge is no one really knows who Satoshi is, which I happen to think is a brilliant move in the long run, because it's not about one person. Right. It's about the movement. It's about the liberation and not having one person who can make all these decisions. But there's some speculation whether it's multiple people working as a team or one person. Nobody really knows. And Satoshi's been basically silent for many years. And the coins that Satoshi owned, because we know which wallets that Satoshi haven't really moved. So there's speculation, but at this point, honestly, nobody really cares. It's beyond Satoshi. It's bigger than him, her, they, it, whatever. And that's the beautiful thing. And I think we'll never find out who Satoshi is, because I think it would be too dangerous for Satoshi, him or herself, to be outed. There are too many issues there. So yeah, it's part of the backstory, which makes it a little bit.
I mean, for the curiosity in
Yeah,
you kind of want to know, but for the practical
I
side of
don't
it,
care.
it's what the invention was. And I'll be honest with you, it's so complex and so detailed and so expansive. I got to imagine it's a partnership of multiple people.
Yeah,
And
I mean, it's the innovation of Bitcoin. I mean, I put Bitcoin up there with like Gutenberg and the printing press. I mean, it is like this. It's one of the. I mean, I think Satoshi's going to be up there with the all-time great inventors. Period, hands down. And in terms of impact on the world, when all's said and done, and I may not live to see it, but when all's said and done, like, I don't want to say guarantee, but I feel pretty confident that most people, like the world, will realize this is a superior way to store value, to transact value than anything that's ever existed. And here's the hard part. It was literally impossible to do until like 2008, 2009. You didn't have high-speed networks. You didn't have fast computers. You didn't have all these things. So it could not have been invented.
Yeah.
That's what's so amazing is like,
but obviously it was being thought about.
It was being thought about for many years.
2008 happened, and then boom, it happened.
It was being thought about for years. Exactly. Yeah. It was being thought about, but like that's why the technology to enable Bitcoin and blockchain didn't exist 30 years ago.
Yep.
It just couldn't have happened. And now they're here, and now we're living through this age, and it's mind blowing.
It has been pretty amazing to watch. We'll get to that. I have a question that I'm going to come back to, but the next question I want to ask you is, can the blockchain be hacked? The blockchain itself. Let's not.
Yes.
We'll focus on the
applications
applications
it can be.
above.
Yes, it can be. Yes, it can be. Nothing. I mean, like, you've been in the business long enough. Like, nothing's perfect.
Nope. Yeah.
It's just significantly better. And you know, it's important to outline here is like, remember, the blockchain is the technology. So right now there are many different blockchains. The Bitcoin's challenging because Bitcoin is the application, but it's also the name of the blockchain. But there's an Ethereum blockchain, there's a Zcash blockchain, there's a Hedera blockchain. There are thousands of these blockchains, which is fine. They can be hacked, but the degree to which a hack is possible is proportional to the amount of computing power and amount of involvement in the network. So the bigger ones, the amount of money or computing power it would take to compromise those blockchains is just astronomical.
Yep.
Smaller ones, sure, they get hacked, they can be compromised, and those are called 51% attacks and what have you. So yes, nothing's infallible, but as they get bigger and they get more people involving in that, the amount of computers and the number of shareholders increases and grows, the security grows along with it. To hack the Bitcoin blockchain, I mean, it would be, you'd need like quantum computers, which I guess could happen.
Well, sure. Not tomorrow, but.
Not tomorrow. It'll be quantum proof by then, hopefully.
Yeah, well, I mean, you figure the blockchain is going to go to the quantum realm.
I mean, there are people talking about it already, for sure, yeah.
So I agree with you. It can be hacked, but I think the best example of it being much more secure is North Korea hacking every crypto exchange it can find, because it's not going after the blockchain, because they know they can't get it. So they go to I was going to say a bad word. They go to these exchanges that have nothing in terms of security, and they just go in through the front door instead of the back door.
Yeah, so that's actually a really important point. It's like the blockchain itself is like pretty freaking secure. Yeah. But the exchanges and the wallets, like in the industry, they call these like the on and off ramps, right? So you have to get a way into the blockchain, and most people come through like a retail trading environment or institutional trading. Like we, for example, if people invest in our fund, we take their money and then we buy it through an institutional custody place, and we put it all there, or trading place, and then we put it in custody. Like ours is like the top secure. So yes, it could get hacked, but the odds of that happening are low. But all of these places, to your point, are central. They bring back the issues of centralization, because right now centralization is faster. It's definitely faster than blockchain. So there's a trade-off, but the trade-off comes with security. And you're right. That's where you compromise the integrity of it. But the core blockchain itself,
Right.
It's just like, no, every 10 minutes, a new block is mined and it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So not perfect, but better.
But, oh yeah, much better.
Much better.
Now, again, you just mentioned another word that is industry jargon, but has come about. So I want you to explain, what is mining?
Right. So, okay. I'm going to try to do this in 30 seconds too.
No,
So
take your time. We've got a few more minutes.
So different blockchains have different ways of providing security to that ledger that we talked about before. The Bitcoin blockchain uses something called proof of work. And basically proof of work is the way that the people who are providing security for that ledger demonstrate that they've actually made an investment in the security of the network. The way that you prove that you're investing is by contributing electricity and computing power. You buy computers, they run the software, and the software basically solves these mathematical puzzles essentially to say, yes, I can verify that Sean is sending 0.03 Bitcoin to Jeremy. Why? Because Sean got Bitcoin from this address and goes all the way back, and we can trace every Bitcoin or every Bitcoin back to its origin. Now,
Right.
Once the miners, the reason they're called miners is once they've solved that hassle, that puzzle, which I guess is a hassle, once they solve that puzzle, they are rewarded with Bitcoin for having provided security. So that process of having done the puzzle, verified the transactions, and then issued a new block to say, yes, we certify these transactions, that process is called mining, and that can only be done with a computer supported by electricity power. And in return for having provided that service, the software pays them Bitcoin. They're called miners because they basically done the work to mine the Bitcoin. There are other networks that don't necessarily use that same, what's called a consensus algorithm, which is how quickly we can all get an agreement about what the ledger looks like right now. And so they'll use different ones, and they're not necessarily called miners, but it's the most common or the most famous one is the miners in Bitcoin. Right. And the miners are simply the people who are providing network security as opposed to, the traditional mechanism.
And there are companies who have built entire data centers. I mean, there are sections of China that just have massive data centers.
Yeah.
And all they do is try to mine Bitcoin.
Well, what's been really interesting, I mean, you've heard issues about Bitcoin in terms of how much electricity it consumes, and it does consume a lot of electricity, but because the two variables associated with driving profitability in that industry is computing power and electricity power, there's a tremendous incentive on the part of the miners to find the lowest cost providers of electricity, because the hardware becomes commodity. So they've actually moved to places where there's excess of there's an abundance of green power, like hydropower, Iceland and places like that. And they're pushing forward these lower cost renewables at a rate that very few other industries are. So it's been really interesting to see that evolve. But yes, these mining farms are ridiculous.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why they would go to a place like Iceland as well is they can use the natural cooling.
Correct. Yes.
To help cool the machines, because I mean,
they run pretty hot.
I mean, I don't think people can get a concept of just how dense and massive these places are. And because they are running every millisecond, they produce ungodly amounts of heat.
I have a machine in my basement that mines like a different one, and it alone creates a lot of heat. Like my whole basement's a heat sink, and it's terrible, but get 10,000 of those machines, it's crazy. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm looking at my notes, and I know you've got a hard stop. So
I do. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's quite okay. Like I said, there will be a part 2.
I'm ready.
I want to ask my last question. Look into your crystal ball. Give me an idea where you see blockchain technology emerging in 3, 5, 10 years in terms of industries that might be taking it up. I can give you one already is insurance. Insurance carriers are looking into it from a claims and a policy perspective. But what other industries are ready into it, or do you think will be into it in that short, mid, and long-term window?
I mean, my glib answer is I can't think of an industry that won't be. You know, it's like saying to me in 1996, where do you think the internet's going to affect? I'm like, everything, you know? So yes, some will come, like gaming, art. The crypto art market has gone from 0 to 200 million in 2 years. There's a whole financial services industry that's emerged. It went from 0 to 7 billion in 2 years. I mean, you know, gaming is a big one because, like, you know, this whole global gaming industry, like all this money that people spend on skins in Fortnite, for example. Imagine you're done playing Fortnite or Legends of Zelda or whatever, and you want to sell your assets. You can't do that. You bought them, but you can't do that. In a blockchain world, you can sell it to someone else. So you're already seeing those happen. So finance, remittances, if you've ever, like, you've probably never sent money back to your family in El Salvador, but if you did, you would be paying 17% fees for the people who can least afford to pay 17%. The rails back to Mexico pre-COVID, at least, I saw some stat. Now I can't say with 100% certainty that nearly 30 to 40% of the money being sent back to Mexico from the US was traveling along, you know, blockchain payment rails. So I think you'll see international. Here's my favorite story. This is early on. This is like when I got crypto religion early. I had 2 clients that both owed me about, say, like $1,000 of like T&E reimbursements. One was in Switzerland, one was in the UK. You know, the Swiss ones were like, let's do it by the book. We're going to send you a wire or whatever. Right. I don't know if you've ever sent a wire internationally, Sean, but like, it's not something you want, like you wish it on your enemies. Yeah. It took 3 weeks. It got rejected twice because like some thing wasn't missing. And when all was said and done, I think I paid like $74 in fees.
Yep.
The guys in the UK were like, yeah, we'll send you crypto, no problem. Had it 10 seconds later and 4 cents in fees. And after that, I was like, I'm done. Like literally, I will only accept crypto for international payments right now. Because the value, we're talking orders of magnitude, faster, cheaper. And you're right, insurance, I mean, all of it. Insurance is an obvious one. 30% of your money goes to premiums, insurance. So like, yes, any industry that has intermediaries in it is sitting squarely in the crosshairs of crypto. And that's pretty much every industry.
Yeah. Well, and I could see where it would help identify fraud much easier in the insurance world. I won't get into how I think it'll happen, but I mean, I do think it'll happen.
No, I think you're right on. I mean, it's, you know, which ones happen in which order, your guess is good as mine. How long it'll take, I don't know. But, you know, my problem right now is I've drunk so much Kool-Aid and I forgot what it's like to not know about this stuff. It's just so obvious to me. My big pain is like, why is it taking so long?
Well, it's like, so let's get out of here on this, and I will give you my opinion on there. It's got to be easy for the average person to understand and use. And right now, neither the use part is easier than the understand part.
Yeah, I disagree. I don't think the understand part is as important. I think the use part
it builds up the trust. Well, the use part, absolutely. Absolutely.
You don't build up the trust when other people start using it. Like, look, I remember back in 1986, 87, I was using a 300 baud dial-up modem to play, like, to go into like chat rooms, and then my mom would pick up the phone and knock me off, and it was the worst thing. Right. Now, that was annoying as all can be. Once you got online, you're like, this is awesome, I'm doing chat, whatever. But it was like 300 baud modem. Now, that was painful. But once you got on, you're like, I got it. Right? That's where we are right now in crypto. Once you get in and once you experience what it's like to have single sign-on to any site without creating your username or password, not having to provide credentials, not having forgotten something, you just show up, bang, you're logged in, they know your wallet's there, whatever. It's like liberation. I can't even begin to explain it, but it's freaking hard.
Yeah.
Even for me, and I know what I'm doing more or less, and it's really hard.
Yep.
But the good news is eventually someone's going to send the equivalent of AOL CDs to everybody, and we're going to have all this stuff. And then my mom's going to be on it. Oh, Sherry signed it thanks to me. But you know what I'm saying? Like all that kind of stuff. So
I do not want my mother on it. She is my
People,
worst
you don't know how
client.
TCP/IP works. You don't know how HTTP works. You don't care. You just know your mom knows the browser works. She knows that email works.
Yeah.
Eventually, she'll be like,
she can shop, but she can't do anything else. She calls me for
Sean,
everything else.
you and I have been in this game, and like, you know how many conversations I've had where it's like, why would I ever need email? Why would I ever need a web page? My all-time favorite. I'll never feel comfortable putting my credit card on the internet. That's my all-time favorite.
Yeah.
Why would I need a smartphone?
Yeah.
Why would I need? Like, okay, you know what?
Yep.
Eventually you'll show up. But as my friend says, everyone else's friction, that's my alpha. Have a nice day.
Oh, wow. I'm not going to steal that, but that's a good one.
You steal it. It's open source. You can have it.
All right.
Here's my advice. Look, yes, I have a fund, and yes, I have skin in the game, but here's what I tell people. And I don't want the compliance guys to be upset with me. At this point, if you look at the macro environment, we've created $7 trillion of new money or whatever in the last couple months, right? It's just out of control. I tell people, look, this thing's been here long enough at this point. You don't have to understand how blockchain and mining and proof of stake and all this stuff works. It's here. Carve out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5%. Don't sell your house. Don't cash in your 401k,
Right.
and go put that in. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But if I'm wrong, you're barely going to miss it.
Yep.
But if I'm right, this is the most valuable video that anyone's ever watched. Well, for them, that's a hyper.
And we're going to close out on that. Don't say anything more. The most valuable video you've ever watched. Mic drop. Jeremy's out. Hey, this was fantastic. It lived up to all expectations, and you can see why Jeremy was on my original invite list. Now, all of Jeremy's contact information for LinkedIn and anything else that he wants to send me and publish will be in the video details, along with the subscribe button, because after this video, you've got to subscribe.
You have to subscribe.
You know, that
you're not going to get this anywhere else.
Are going to get really good. Jeremy, this was fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All the best to the family. And until part 2,
yes,
I want to thank everybody for watching. Did you know that? ? The channel where we just talk about stuff that we find interesting. So again, my name is Sean O'Rourke. He is Jeremy Epstein. Thanks for watching. And until next time, take care.